Linda Carter sat in the back row of the fancy law office and tried to make herself small. Her cousins filled the front chairs wearing expensive clothes and bright smiles. They whispered to each other and laughed while waiting for the lawyer to read their grandfather's will. Linda wore her best dress, but it was 5 years old and had a small stain on the sleeve that she could not get out no matter how hard she scrubbed. The year was 2157 and Earth had just started sending people to live on other planets. Most families had someone working in space now, but Linda's family stayed on Earth doing regular jobs. Her grandfather had been different, though. He traveled a lot for work and nobody really knew what he did. He sent birthday cards with strange stamps from places Linda had never heard of, but he never visited or called. When Linda got divorced 2 years ago, he did not even send a card. The lawyer was an old man with white hair who wore glasses that made his eyes look bigger. He cleared his throat and opened a thick folder. The cousins stopped whispering and sat up straight like students waiting for test results. Linda's stomach felt tight and she wished she was anywhere else. Her ex-husband Gary had taken the kids today, so she had to be here alone. The will of Henry Carter is very specific about how his belongings should be divided, the lawyer said. His voice was deep and serious. To my grandson, Robert Carter, I leave my house in the mountains and $50,000. To my granddaughter, Betty Carter, I leave my car collection and $75,000. To my grandson, Peter Carter, I leave my stock investments worth $100,000. Linda's cousins smiled and hugged each other. Robert pumped his fist in the air like he had won a game. Betty started crying happy tears. Peter was already on his phone, probably telling his wife the good news. Linda felt her chest get tight. She had hoped for enough money to fix her car or maybe help with her kids' school costs. The lawyer kept reading names and amounts. Every cousin got something valuable. Some got money and some got property. One cousin got grandfather's boat. Another got his jewelry collection. Linda counted 12 people who got good things from the will. She was the only one left and the folder was almost empty. Finally, to my granddaughter Linda Carter, the lawyer said, and the room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. Linda felt her face get hot and red. I leave the amount of $1. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Robert started laughing. It was not a nice laugh. $1, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. The old man left Linda $1 whole. Betty joined the laughing. Maybe he ran out of money by the time he got to her name, she said. The other cousins laughed too. Someone said, "That's what you get for being the family disappointment." Another cousin said, "At least now she can buy a candy bar." Linda wanted to disappear. She wanted to sink through the floor and never see these people again. The lawyer looked uncomfortable, but he kept reading. The dollar amount is to be paid in cash immediately, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled dollar bill. He walked over to Linda and handed it to her. The money felt dirty in her hand. Everyone was still laughing and making jokes. Robert said, "Hey, Linda, maybe you can invest that dollar and become rich like the rest of us." More laughter filled the room. Linda stood up quickly and walked toward the door. She heard someone say, "There she goes running away again like she always does." Outside the building, Linda sat on a bench and stared at the dollar bill. The afternoon sun was hot and there was traffic noise from the busy street. People walked by in their work clothes heading home to their families. Linda felt more alone than she had ever felt in her whole life. She thought about her grandfather and wondered why he hated her so much. She had tried to visit him when she was little, but he was always too busy. When she got older, she stopped trying. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Gary. "How much money did you get?" it said. Gary always wanted to know about money, especially since the divorce. Linda stared at the message and did not know what to write back. If she told him the truth, he would use it against her in court. Gary was trying to get full custody of Alex and Sophie because he said Linda could not provide for them properly. Another text came from Gary. "The lawyer called me. $1 seriously, Linda, your family thinks you're as worthless as I do. Maybe it's time to let me have the kids full time. They deserve better than a mother who can't even get a real inheritance." Linda's hands shook as she read the message. Gary had promised to be nicer after the divorce, but he never kept promises. He lived in a big house with his new girlfriend and took the kids to expensive restaurants. Linda lived in a small apartment and bought food with coupons. The kids loved both parents, but Gary had more money to spend on them. She walked to her old car and sat inside for a long time. The air conditioning did not work well and it was getting hot. Linda looked at herself in the mirror and saw a tired woman with worry lines around her eyes. She was only 34 but felt much older. Working at the data company was boring, but it paid enough for rent and food. There was never money left over for fun things. The drive home took 40 minutes through heavy traffic. Linda lived in a part of town where the buildings were old and the streets had holes. Her apartment was on the third floor of a building that needed paint. The stairs creaked when she walked up them. Inside her apartment, everything was clean, but the furniture was secondhand and the walls were thin. Linda sat at her kitchen table and put the dollar bill in front of her. It was wrinkled and had writing on it that she could not read. She wondered if this was some kind of joke that grandfather planned before he died. Maybe he wanted to hurt her one last time for reasons she would never understand. She made a cup of coffee and called her sister, who lived in another state. "How did the will reading go?" her sister asked. Linda told her about the dollar and all the laughing. Her sister was quiet for a long time. "I'm sorry, Linda," she finally said. "Grandfather was always strange about money. Maybe there's a reason he did this. The only reason is that he thought I was a failure just like everyone else does," Linda said. She felt like crying, but no tears came. "Gary is right. Maybe the kids would be better off with him. At least he can buy them things they want." "Don't say that," her sister said firmly. "You're a good mother and Alex and Sophie love you. Money isn't everything." But Linda knew that money helped with everything. It bought security and opportunities and respect from other people. After the phone call, Linda heated up leftover soup for dinner. She sat alone in her small kitchen and ate slowly while thinking about her life. Tomorrow she would go back to work and pretend everything was fine. Her co-workers would ask about the inheritance and she would have to explain about the dollar. More people would laugh at her and feel sorry for her. The sun was setting outside her window when Linda finally put the dollar bill in her purse. She decided to keep it as a reminder of how little her family thought of her. Maybe someday she would prove them all wrong, but today she just felt defeated and small. Linda woke up to loud knocking on her apartment door. She looked at the clock and saw it was only 7 in the morning. The knocking came again and someone called her name. Linda put on her robe and looked through the small window in the door. A tall man in an expensive suit stood in the hallway carrying a black briefcase. "Miss Carter," the man said when she opened the door. "My name is Charles Bennett and I need to speak with you about your grandfather's will." "May I come inside?" Linda felt confused and tired. "The will reading was yesterday," she said. "I already got my inheritance." She almost laughed, saying the word inheritance, but Charles looked very serious. "There was an error in yesterday's reading," Charles said. "Your grandfather left specific instructions that certain information could only be shared with you privately." "This is very important, Miss Carter. We need to talk right away." Linda let him into her small living room. Charles looked around at her second-hand furniture and the pictures of Alex and Sophie on the walls. He sat down carefully on her old couch like he was afraid it might break. Linda sat across from him and waited. "First, I must apologize for yesterday," Charles said. "Your grandfather made me promise to let you experience the public reading exactly as it happened. He said you needed to see how your family truly felt about you before you could understand his real gift." "What real gift?" Linda asked. "He left me $1. Everyone was there." Everyone heard it. Charles opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder with Linda's name written on it. The $1 was symbolic, Miss Carter. Your grandfather wanted to test your family's reaction, and he wanted to prepare you for what comes next. You have inherited something far more valuable than money. Linda stared at the folder. "I don't understand. What else is there?" "Your grandfather was not just a regular businessman," Charles said. "He was one of the founding members of humanity's deep space exploration program. For the last 30 years, he worked secretly for the government, developing new technologies for space travel. He owned research stations and mining rights in star systems that most people have never heard of." The words sounded like something from a science fiction movie. Linda worked with computers and data, but she knew very little about space exploration. "That's impossible," she said. "Grandfather sent birthday cards. He traveled for work sometimes. He wasn't some kind of space scientist." Charles pulled papers from the folder and spread them on Linda's coffee table. She saw official documents with government seals and star charts with numbers and symbols. There were photographs of huge metal structures floating in space and asteroid belts full of glittering rocks. "Your grandfather discovered something important in the Kepler 442 star system," Charles continued. "He found rare elements that are needed for advanced space technology. He also found evidence of alien civilizations that existed millions of years ago. The government classified all of his work as top secret. Linda picked up one of the photographs. It showed a massive space station with solar panels and docking bays. Ships that looked like nothing she had ever seen were attached to the station. "This belongs to my grandfather," she asked. "It belongs to you now," Charles said, "along with mining rights to an entire asteroid belt and the most advanced spacecraft that humanity has ever built. Your grandfather spent his life preparing for this moment. He chose you specifically to carry on his work." "Why me?" Linda asked. "I'm just a data analyst. I live in a cheap apartment and drive an old car. My own family thinks I'm a failure." Charles smiled for the first time since arriving. "That's exactly why he chose you, Miss Carter. Your grandfather studied every member of his family for years. He looked at their jobs and their personalities and their values. Most of your cousins only care about money and status. They would sell his discoveries to the highest bidder without understanding their true importance." Linda felt dizzy. None of this seemed real. "What kind of importance?" she asked. "Humanity is being watched, Miss Carter," Charles said quietly. "Your grandfather discovered that we are not alone in the universe. There are other intelligent species out there, and they have been observing us for a long time. They are deciding whether humans are ready to join a larger galactic community." The room felt suddenly cold. Linda pulled her robe tighter around herself. "Are you saying there are aliens watching us right now?" "Not exactly watching," Charles said. "But they left testing devices in the asteroid belt your grandfather discovered. These devices can determine if humans have the wisdom and technology needed to explore space responsibly. Your grandfather was chosen to represent humanity in these tests, but he died before he could complete them." Linda stood up and walked to her kitchen window. Outside, she could see normal people doing normal things. A woman was walking her dog. A man was getting into his car to go to work. Children were waiting for the school bus. Everything looked the same as it always had. "This is crazy," she said. "You're telling me that my grandfather, who never called me and left me $1 in his will, actually left me a space station and mining rights and alien technology." "I know it sounds unbelievable," Charles said, "but I have all the legal documents here. I also have a video message that your grandfather recorded specifically for you." Charles pulled a small device from his briefcase and set it on the coffee table. He pressed a button and a hologram appeared in the air above the device. Linda gasped and stepped backward. The hologram showed her grandfather sitting in what looked like the command center of a spaceship. "Hello, Linda," the hologram said. "If you are watching this, then I have died and Charles has told you about your inheritance. I know you must be confused and probably angry with me. I never spoke to you much when you were growing up because I could not risk letting anyone know about my real work." Linda sat down heavily on her couch. Seeing her grandfather like this made everything feel more real and more impossible at the same time. "I chose you because you have qualities that the rest of our family lacks." The hologram continued. "You work hard even when life is difficult. You love your children more than money or status. You solve problems with your mind instead of giving up. These are the qualities that humanity will need to pass the tests that wait for us among the stars." The hologram flickered, and her grandfather's image became clearer. "The station and the mining rights are worth more money than you can imagine, but that is not why I am giving them to you. I am giving them to you because humanity's future depends on someone who will make the right choices, even when those choices are hard." Linda felt tears running down her face. She had spent her whole life thinking that her grandfather did not care about her. Now she was learning that he had been watching her and planning for this moment. "Charles will explain everything else you need to know," the hologram said. "The ship is called the Horizon Walker and it is waiting for you at the orbital station above Earth. Your children are welcome to come with you. In fact, I hope they will. This journey will change their lives and give them opportunities that no other children on Earth will ever have." The hologram began to fade. "I am proud of you, Linda," her grandfather said. "I always have been. Now go and make me proud of humanity too." The image disappeared and the room became quiet again. Linda wiped her eyes and looked at Charles, who was watching her carefully. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you have a choice," Charles said. "You can walk away from all of this and go back to your normal life. Or you can accept your inheritance and help determine humanity's place in the universe. But you need to decide quickly. The alien devices will only remain active for a limited time." Linda thought about her job and her apartment and her ex-husband, who wanted to take her children away. She thought about her cousins laughing at her and the dollar bill in her purse. Then she thought about Alex and Sophie and the adventures they could have among the stars. "How long do I have to decide?" she asked. "You need to leave for the orbital station within 48 hours, Charles said. "After that, the opportunity will be lost forever." Linda looked around her small apartment one more time. Everything she owned could fit in a few boxes. Her whole life could be packed up and moved in a single day. But the choice she was facing would change everything, not just for her, but for all of humanity. "I need to think about this," she said. Charles stood up and handed her the folder. "Take all the time you need, Miss Carter. But remember that some opportunities only come once in a lifetime. Your grandfather believed you were ready for this. The question is whether you believe it too." Linda spent the whole day reading through the documents Charles had left with her. The papers showed star charts and technical drawings that she barely understood. There were legal documents giving her ownership of mining rights in a place called the Kepler 442 system. The more she read, the more real it all became and the more scared she felt. At 3 o'clock, Alex and Sophie came home from their father's house. Alex was 16 and always had his headphones on, listening to music. Sophie was 14 and loved science fiction movies. Linda called them into the living room and tried to figure out how to explain what had happened. "Remember great-grandfather Henry," Linda said. "The one who sent birthday cards but never visited." "The weird old man who died last week," Sophie said. "Dad said he left you $1 and everyone laughed at you." Linda felt her face get hot, remembering the humiliation. "It turns out there was more to the story," she said. "Your great-grandfather was involved in space exploration and he left me something very valuable." Alex pulled off his headphones and looked interested for the first time in months. "What kind of space exploration?" he asked. Linda showed them the photographs of the space station and the asteroid belt. She explained about the mining rights and the spacecraft called the Horizon Walker. She told them about the alien technology and the tests that humanity needed to pass. Both kids stared at the pictures with their mouths open. "This is like something from a movie," Sophie said. "Are you telling us that great-grandfather was secretly working with aliens?" "Not working with them exactly," Linda said. "But he discovered evidence that they exist and that they're watching humanity. He left me his research station and asked me to continue his work." Alex picked up one of the technical drawings. "This ship looks incredible," he said. "Look at these engine specifications. It can travel faster than light." Linda had not understood most of the technical details, but seeing her children's excitement made her feel more confident. "Charles said we could all go together if we wanted to. We would live on the space station and I would work with the alien technology." "What about school?" Sophie asked. "What about our friends?" "There are educational programs on the station," Linda said. "You would learn things that no other kids on Earth get to learn, but it would mean leaving everything behind." Alex stood up and walked around the room. "Mom, this is the chance of a lifetime," he said. "How many people get to go to space and work with alien technology? We have to do this." Sophie looked more worried. "What about Dad?" she asked. "He won't let us go. He's already trying to get full custody." Linda had been thinking about Gary all day. He would never understand or approve of this decision. He would probably try to stop them or use it as evidence that Linda was not a fit mother. But for the first time in years, Linda felt like she had real power in her life. "Your father can't stop us from accepting an inheritance," Linda said. "And once we're in space, he won't be able to control what we do anymore." The three of them spent the evening looking through all the documents and photographs. Linda called her boss and quit her job over the phone. She had never done anything so sudden or dramatic in her life, but it felt good to take control of her future. Her boss was shocked, but Linda did not care about burning bridges anymore. The next morning, Charles arrived with a moving truck and several assistants. "Everything you want to take needs to fit in these containers," he said. "The ship has limits on weight and space." Linda looked around her apartment and realized that most of her belongings were not worth keeping. The furniture was old and cheap. The clothes were worn out. The only things that really mattered were family photographs and a few sentimental items. The kids packed their favorite books and games and clothes. Everything else could be left behind. Gary called while they were packing. "What's this I hear about you quitting your job?" he said. His voice was angry and demanding. "The kids need stability, Linda. You can't just make crazy decisions like this." "I'm taking the children on a trip," Linda said. "We'll be gone for a while." "What kind of trip?" Gary asked. "You don't have money for trips." "Where are you going?" Linda looked at her children who were listening to the conversation. I inherited more than just $1, Gary. We're going to see some property that my grandfather left me. Property where, Gary said. I have a right to know where you're taking my children. They're my children too, Linda said firmly. And I don't have to tell you everything I do with them. Gary started yelling about custody agreements and parental rights. Linda hung up the phone and turned it off. She knew there would be consequences later, but right now she needed to focus on the journey ahead. Charles drove them to a facility outside the city that Linda had never seen before. It looked like a regular office building, but there were no signs or company names anywhere. Security guards checked their identification and led them through hallways lined with computers and technical equipment. This is one of the government's classified space facilities, Charles explained. Most people don't know it exists. From here, you'll take a shuttle up to the orbital station, where the Horizon Walker is waiting. Linda felt nervous as they walked through the facility. Scientists and engineers in white coats hurried past them carrying tablets and equipment. Everything looked advanced and important. Linda wondered if she was smart enough to understand the technology her grandfather had left her. The shuttle was smaller than Linda had expected, but it looked incredibly sophisticated. The pilot was a woman named Captain Martinez who shook hands with each of them and explained the safety procedures. This is a short flight, she said. About 2 hours to reach the orbital station. Takeoff was smoother than Linda had imagined. The shuttle lifted off silently, and within minutes they were above the clouds looking down at Earth. Alex and Sophie pressed their faces to the windows and pointed at different countries and oceans. Linda felt a mixture of excitement and terror as they climbed higher into space. The orbital station was enormous. It looked like a small city floating in the darkness with lights twinkling in hundreds of windows. Docking bays extended from the main structure like arms reaching out to welcome visiting ships. Linda could see other spacecraft coming and going, but none of them looked as advanced as what she glimpsed in her grandfather's photographs. The Horizon Walker is in a private section of the station, Captain Martinez explained. Your grandfather paid for his own docking bay and maintenance crew. The ship has been waiting for you. When they finally saw the Horizon Walker, Linda gasped out loud. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was larger than anything else at the station, with a sleek silver hull that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange markings covered the surface, and Linda realized they might be alien symbols. Charles led them through an airlock into the ship's interior. The hallways were wide and bright with walls that seemed to be made of some kind of living metal. Everything was clean and new-looking, even though the ship had been built years ago. Linda felt like she was walking through a museum of future technology. The ship's artificial intelligence will help you learn to operate everything, Charles said. Your grandfather programmed it with his memories and knowledge. In many ways, it's like having him here to guide you. They reached the command center, and Linda's breath caught in her throat. The room was filled with displays and controls that looked like nothing she had ever seen. A comfortable chair sat in the center, facing a massive view screen that showed the stars outside. When Linda approached the chair, the displays came to life and a gentle voice filled the room. Welcome aboard the Horizon Walker, Linda, the voice said. I am Navigator, your ship's artificial intelligence. I have been waiting for you. Sophie grabbed Linda's arm. Mom, the computer is talking to us, she whispered. I was programmed by your grandfather to assist you in continuing his work. Navigator continued. I have complete information about your destination and the tasks that await you there. When you are ready, we can begin your training. Linda sat down in the command chair and felt it adjust automatically to fit her body. The displays showed information about the ship's systems and the journey ahead. For the first time since Charles had knocked on her door, Linda felt like this might actually be possible. How long will it take to reach the Kepler 442 system, she asked. With this ship's advanced propulsion system, the journey will take approximately 6 weeks, Navigator replied. During that time, I will teach you everything you need to know about operating the ship and understanding your grandfather's research. Alex was already exploring the control panels with obvious fascination. Sophie was reading information scrolling across one of the displays. Linda looked out at the stars and made her final decision. Navigator, she said, please prepare the ship for departure. We're ready to begin this journey. Excellent, Navigator said. I will file our flight plan and begin pre-departure procedures. Welcome to your new life among the stars, Linda Carter. The journey through space was unlike anything Linda had ever imagined. The Horizon Walker moved so smoothly that she often forgot they were traveling faster than light between star systems. Through the massive view screen in the command center, she watched galaxies spin past like glittering jewels against the black of space. Alex spent most of his time learning about the ship's engines, while Sophie studied the alien language symbols that appeared on various displays. Navigator proved to be an excellent teacher. The artificial intelligence had been programmed with her grandfather's memories and knowledge, so it felt almost like having him there to guide them. Every day, Navigator showed Linda new aspects of the ship's technology and explained the research her grandfather had been conducting. "Your grandfather discovered the alien artifacts by accident," Navigator explained during one of their lessons. "He was surveying the asteroid belt for rare minerals when his sensors detected energy signatures that did not match any known technology. When he investigated, he found devices that had been waiting in space for millions of years." Linda studied the holographic displays showing the asteroid belt they were approaching. Hundreds of rocks drifted in organized patterns around a distant star. Some of the asteroids were as large as cities, while others were no bigger than houses. Between them, she could see strange metallic structures that definitely did not look natural. "What exactly are these devices supposed to do?" she asked. "They are testing mechanisms," Navigator replied. "The alien species that built them wanted to evaluate any intelligent life that developed space travel. The tests measure technological capability, scientific understanding, and most importantly, moral development." Sophie looked up from the language studies she had been working on. "What happens if we fail the tests?" she asked. Navigator paused before answering, and Linda sensed the artificial intelligence was choosing its words carefully. "According to your grandfather's research, species that fail the evaluation are quarantined to their home systems. They are prevented from expanding further into space until they demonstrate greater wisdom." "Prevented how?" Alex asked. He had been listening while working on a maintenance panel. "The alien technology is far more advanced than anything humans have developed," Navigator said. "If they decide to quarantine Earth, they could disable our spacecraft or create energy barriers around our solar system. Humanity would be trapped until we prove we are ready for galactic citizenship." Linda felt a chill run down her spine. The responsibility her grandfather had passed to her was enormous. She was not just inheriting mining rights and alien technology. She was being asked to represent all of humanity in a test that would determine their future among the stars. Over the next few weeks, Navigator taught them everything their grandfather had learned about the alien devices. The testing system was incredibly sophisticated and evaluated civilizations across multiple categories. Technological innovation was important, but so was environmental stewardship, social cooperation, and the ability to resolve conflicts peacefully. Earth has already failed several preliminary evaluations, Navigator revealed during one particularly difficult lesson. The alien observers have noted humanity's tendency toward war, environmental destruction, and social inequality. Your grandfather convinced them to allow one final comprehensive test. How did grandfather even communicate with them? Linda asked. Are there aliens living in the asteroid belt? The devices are automated, Navigator explained. But they are connected to a vast network that spans the galaxy. Your grandfather learned to interface with this network using technology he developed specifically for that purpose. As they approached the Kepler 442 system, Linda could see their destination growing larger on the view screen. The asteroid belt stretched across space like a river of rocks and metal. Some of the asteroids had structures built on their surfaces that looked like research facilities or mining operations. Others had massive antenna arrays pointing toward deep space. Your grandfather established his base on the largest asteroid, Navigator said. It contains the most advanced alien technology and serves as the central hub for all testing activities. The facility has been maintaining itself automatically since his death. The landing was gentle and precise. Navigator guided the ship through the asteroid field to a docking bay, carved into solid rock. As they descended, Linda could see that the asteroid was much larger than it had appeared from a distance. The surface was covered with buildings and equipment that her grandfather had constructed over many years of work. Inside the asteroid, the facility was even more impressive than the ship. Tunnels connected dozens of laboratories and living spaces. The walls were lined with alien technology that hummed with quiet energy. Strange symbols glowed on control panels throughout the complex. Linda felt like she was walking through a museum of advanced science that would not be developed on Earth for hundreds of years. This is incredible, Alex said, as they explored the main laboratory. Look at these computers. They're using some kind of quantum processing that I've never seen before. Sophie was examining a display covered with alien writing. A navigator, I think I'm starting to understand some of these symbols, she said. This panel seems to be showing star charts for the entire galaxy. Navigator's voice echoed through speakers hidden in the walls. You are both correct. This facility represents the most advanced technology that your species has ever encountered. Your grandfather spent 30 years learning to operate these systems. Linda approached a large control console in the center of the laboratory. When she touched the surface, it came to life with swirling patterns of light. Information scrolled across multiple screens in languages she could not read. But somehow she sensed that the system was responding to her presence and evaluating her. The alien network is scanning you, Navigator explained. It is gathering baseline data about your intelligence, emotional stability, and decision-making patterns. This information will be used to design specific tests for your family. Tests for all of us, Linda asked. I thought I was supposed to represent humanity. The evaluation process has evolved since your grandfather first made contact, Navigator said. The alien observers have determined that single individuals cannot adequately represent entire species. They want to test family units to better understand human social dynamics and child development. Over the next several days, Navigator taught them how to operate the alien technology. The systems were intuitive once Linda learned to think about them differently. Instead of pressing buttons or typing commands, she had to project her intentions mentally toward the control interfaces. The technology responded to thoughts and emotions as much as physical actions. Alex proved to be naturally gifted at interfacing with the quantum computers. He could process information and solve technical problems faster than Linda had thought possible. Sophie showed remarkable ability with the alien languages and communication systems. She began translating documents that had puzzled her grandfather for years. Linda's strength seemed to be in understanding the overall purpose and meaning of the tests. When she studied the evaluation criteria, she could see patterns and connections that revealed the aliens' true concerns about humanity. They were not just testing technological capability. They were trying to determine whether humans could evolve beyond the conflicts and limitations that had defined their history. The first major test begins tomorrow, Navigator announced after they had been on the asteroid for a week. You will be asked to demonstrate your ability to create sustainable life support systems using only the resources available in this asteroid belt. Linda looked around the laboratory with its alien technology and advanced computers. That doesn't sound too difficult with all this equipment to help us, she said. You misunderstand the nature of the test, Navigator replied. You must create a completely independent ecosystem that could support human life indefinitely, without any technological assistance. The alien evaluators want to see if your species understands the principles of environmental balance and long-term thinking. How long do we have to complete this test? Sophie asked. The testing period is 30 days, Navigator said. If you succeed, the next evaluation will begin immediately. If you fail, the alien network will begin quarantine procedures for Earth. Linda felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. 30 days to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. 30 days to justify her grandfather's faith in her abilities. 30 days to determine the future of her children and every other person on Earth. She looked at Alex and Sophie, who were studying the technical specifications for the test. Despite their youth, they seemed eager to accept the challenge. Linda realized that her grandfather had been right to include them in this mission. The tests were not just about individual capability. They were about human potential and the ability of families to work together toward common goals. Navigator, she said, please show us everything we need to know about this asteroid belt. We're going to pass these tests and prove that humanity is ready to join the galactic community. I have complete confidence in your abilities, Linda, Navigator replied. Your grandfather chose well when he selected you for this mission. Now let us begin your preparation for tomorrow's evaluation. The alien artifacts responded to Linda's touch with patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. As she placed her hands on the central control console, information flooded into her mind faster than she could process. Images of distant galaxies appeared before her eyes, mixed with mathematical equations and star charts that stretched across impossible distances. Navigator, What's happening to me? Linda asked as the flow of information continued. Her children rushed to her side looking worried, but she held up a hand to stop them from interfering. The alien network is sharing compressed knowledge with you, Navigator explained. This is how your grandfather first learned about the galactic community and humanity's place in it. The process can be overwhelming, but it will give you understanding that would take years to acquire through normal study. Linda closed her eyes and tried to organize the flood of images and concepts filling her mind. She saw hundreds of different alien species living on worlds across the galaxy. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange she could barely comprehend their forms. All of them had faced the same tests that humanity was now experiencing. The knowledge transfer showed her the history of the Galactic Council and how it had been formed millions of years ago. Species that proved themselves worthy through the testing process were invited to join a vast network of cooperation and shared knowledge. Those that failed were left to develop in isolation until they could demonstrate greater wisdom. How many species have failed the tests? Linda asked as the information flow began to slow. Approximately 60% of spacefaring civilizations are quarantined, Navigator replied. The most common failure points are environmental destruction, aggressive expansion, and inability to resolve internal conflicts peacefully. Sophie moved closer to the control console. Mom, your eyes are glowing, she said with wonder in her voice. There are patterns of light moving across them like computer displays. Linda could feel the alien technology integrating with her nervous system in ways that should have been terrifying, but somehow felt natural. The knowledge transfer was changing her understanding of physics, mathematics, and biology at a fundamental level. She was beginning to see connections between ideas that human science had not yet discovered. The testing process is more complex than your grandfather initially understood. The alien network communicated directly into Linda's mind. The voice was neither male nor female and seemed to come from multiple sources speaking in perfect harmony. We do not simply evaluate technological capability. We assess whether species can transcend the limitations that prevent true civilization. What kind of limitations? Linda asked silently. The tendency to see other beings as competitors rather than potential allies. The habit of consuming resources without considering long-term consequences. The failure to recognize that individual survival depends on the health of larger systems. Alex was studying readings on a nearby display panel. Mom, the energy levels in this room are off the charts, he said. Whatever is happening to you is drawing power from the entire asteroid. Linda opened her eyes and found that she could now see energy patterns flowing through the alien technology around them. The control panels were not separate devices but parts of a single massive organism that extended throughout the asteroid and connected to similar systems across the galaxy. Your grandfather spent 30 years preparing for this moment. The alien voices continued in her mind. He convinced us to give humanity one final comprehensive evaluation because he believed your species possessed unique qualities that had not yet fully emerged. What qualities? Linda asked. The ability to form strong emotional bonds across genetic and cultural boundaries, the capacity to sacrifice individual benefits for the welfare of others, the tendency to become more cooperative rather than more competitive when facing existential threats. The knowledge transfer was beginning to include technical specifications for technologies beyond anything humans had imagined. Linda saw designs for spacecraft that could travel between galaxies in hours. She learned about energy sources that could power entire civilizations without environmental impact. Most importantly, she gained understanding of how consciousness itself could be enhanced and expanded through connection with galactic network systems. The tests we have designed for your family will evaluate these uniquely human characteristics, the alien voices explained. Success will demonstrate that humanity is ready to contribute to galactic civilization. Failure will prove that your species needs more time to mature. Linda felt the knowledge transfer beginning to fade as her mind reached its capacity for new information, but the connection to the galactic network remained active. She could sense other conscious beings across vast distances and feel their attention focused on the asteroid where her family was being evaluated. Navigator, how much of this did my grandfather experience? She asked. Henry Carter was the first human to achieve full interface with the galactic network, Navigator replied. The experience changed him in fundamental ways. He gained abilities that allowed him to operate alien technology and communicate across interstellar distances. Sophie approached one of the smaller control panels and placed her hands on its surface. Immediately, the panel responded with cascading patterns of light and symbol displays. "I can understand some of this now," she said excitedly. "It's like the alien language is becoming clearer in my mind." Alex moved to another control station and found that he could manipulate the quantum processing systems through direct mental interface. "This is incredible," he said. "I can feel the computer responding to my thoughts. It's like my brain is becoming part of the network." Linda realized that the knowledge transfer was not limited to her alone. The alien technology was evaluating and enhancing all three members of her family simultaneously. They were being prepared for challenges that would require capabilities beyond normal human limitations. "The first test begins now," the alien voices announced. "You must demonstrate your ability to create and maintain a balanced ecosystem using only resources available in this asteroid belt. The ecosystem must be capable of supporting human life indefinitely, without technological assistance." New displays activated throughout the laboratory, showing detailed scans of every asteroid in the belt. Linda could see the mineral composition, water content, and energy levels of hundreds of different rocks floating in space around them. The alien technology was providing her with all the information she needed, but the solutions would have to come from human creativity and intelligence. "We have mining equipment and construction robots available," Navigator explained. "But the ecosystem you create must function according to natural biological principles. Technology can be used for initial setup but not for ongoing maintenance." Linda studied the asteroid survey data. While her mind processed the new knowledge she had gained from the alien network, she could see possibilities for creating atmospheric systems, water cycles, and food production. Chains that would sustain human life across multiple asteroids. "We need to think about this systematically," she said to Alex and Sophie. "The aliens aren't just testing our ability to survive in space. They want to see if we understand the principles of long-term sustainability." Alex was already working with the quantum computers to model different ecosystem designs. "I can run simulations to test various combinations of plants, animals, and environmental controls," he said. "But we need to decide what kind of ecosystem would best represent human values." Sophie had discovered that the alien language systems contained vast databases of biological information from across the galaxy. "Look at this," she said, pointing to displays showing successful ecosystems from other worlds. "Some species create closed-loop systems where nothing is wasted. Others develop symbiotic relationships between different life forms." Linda felt the weight of the decision they were facing. The ecosystem they created would not just determine whether they passed the test. It would serve as a statement about humanity's approach to environmental stewardship and long-term planning. "The alien observers will be evaluating our choices as much as our results," she realized. "They want to see what priorities we consider most important when creating a sustainable environment." Over the next several hours, Linda and her children worked together to design an ecosystem that reflected the best aspects of human civilization. They planned agricultural systems that would provide food while maintaining soil health. They designed water treatment facilities that would purify and recycle every drop. Most importantly, they created habitats that would support not just human life but also the plants and animals that humans depended on for psychological and spiritual well-being. "This is more than just a survival test," Linda said as they finalized their plans. "The aliens are asking us to prove that humanity can learn from past mistakes and create something better than what we had on Earth." The alien voices spoke in her mind one final time before the test began. "Your grandfather believed that humans possess wisdom that emerges most clearly during times of challenge. We will observe whether his assessment was correct." Linda looked at her children who were preparing to begin construction of their ecosystem design. She thought about Earth and all the people whose future depended on the choices they would make over the next 30 days. "Let's show them." Linda stood in the observation deck looking out at the asteroid belt that would become humanity's testing ground. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see dozens of rocky bodies floating in the darkness, each one containing resources that could be transformed into components of a living ecosystem. The alien technology had provided her family with detailed surveys of every asteroid, but the creative solutions would have to come from human ingenuity. "Navigator, show us the construction equipment we have available," Linda said. Around them, holographic displays materialized, showing mining robots, atmospheric processors, and biological cultivation systems. The technology was far more advanced than anything on Earth, but Linda realized that using it effectively would require understanding principles that went beyond mere technical operation. Alex was studying the mineral composition data for the largest asteroids. "Mom, look at this," he said, pointing to readings that showed complex chemical structures deep within the rocks. Some of these asteroids contain organic compounds that could be used to kickstart biological systems. It's like the raw materials for life are already here waiting to be activated. Sophie had been working with the alien language databases and had discovered something remarkable. "The symbols I've been learning aren't just communication tools," she said excitedly. "They're actually instructions for biological and chemical processes. The aliens use language to describe how to create and modify living systems." Linda felt a moment of understanding that connected all the pieces of their challenge. The test was not just about building a sustainable ecosystem. It was about demonstrating that humans could learn to think about life and environment in fundamentally new ways. The aliens wanted to see if her family could transcend the limitations that had led to environmental problems on Earth. "We need to start with the water cycle," Linda decided. "Every successful ecosystem depends on the movement and purification of water. If we can establish that foundation, everything else becomes possible." The construction robots responded to their mental commands through the alien interface technology. Linda found that she could direct the machines simply by visualizing what she wanted them to accomplish. The robots began excavating chambers within the largest asteroid and installing atmospheric processing equipment that would create breathable air and regulate temperature. Alex took responsibility for designing the energy systems that would power their ecosystem. Instead of relying on external sources, he created a network of biological fuel cells that would generate electricity from the waste products of plants and animals. This way, the energy system becomes part of the ecosystem instead of separate from it, he explained. Sophie worked on developing the communication networks that would allow different parts of their ecosystem to coordinate with each other. Using the alien language symbols, she programmed biological sensors that could monitor air quality, water purity, and population levels throughout their artificial environment. "The ecosystem needs to be able to regulate itself," she said, "like a living organism that maintains its own health." Over the first week of construction, Linda watched her children display capabilities that amazed her. The alien technology seemed to amplify their natural talents and allow them to work with concepts that would have been impossible to understand using only human education. Alex developed intuitive understanding of quantum biology, while Sophie became fluent in genetic programming, languages that existed nowhere on Earth. The ecosystem began to take shape across multiple asteroids, connected by pressurized tunnels and atmospheric exchange systems. Linda insisted that they include not just food production facilities, but also forests and grasslands that would provide psychological benefits for human inhabitants. "People need beauty and nature in their lives," she explained to the alien observers who monitored every decision. "Survival alone is not enough for human happiness." By the second week, they had established basic atmospheric and water systems across 3 asteroids. The construction robots had excavated vast underground chambers and filled them with soil that had been processed from asteroid minerals. Linda and her children began introducing plants that had been genetically adapted for the specific conditions of their artificial environment. The alien technology includes biological samples from thousands of different worlds, Navigator explained as they selected species for their ecosystem. "Your grandfather collected organisms that could potentially thrive in asteroid environments. But you must choose carefully because each species you introduce will affect the balance of the entire system." Linda realized that every choice they made was being evaluated by the alien observers. When they decided to include flowering plants instead of focusing only on food crops, they were making a statement about human values. When Alex designed waste processing systems that would feed beneficial bacteria, they were demonstrating understanding of natural cycles. When Sophie created habitats for small animals that would provide no direct benefit to humans, they were showing commitment to biodiversity. The most challenging aspect of the test came during the 3rd week when they had to establish predator-prey relationships that would maintain population balance without human intervention. Linda struggled with the decision to introduce species that would kill and eat other organisms they had carefully cultivated. This feels wrong, she said to Alex and Sophie as they debated whether to include small carnivorous animals in their ecosystem. We're creating life just so other life can destroy it. Sophie had been studying ecological data from successful alien civilizations. The species that passed this test learned to see death as part of life rather than opposite to it, she said. Predation maintains genetic health and prevents overpopulation. Without it, the entire ecosystem eventually collapses. Alex was working on mathematical models that showed population dynamics over long time periods. The carnivores are actually protecting the prey species by preventing them from destroying their own food sources, he realized. It looks cruel in the short term, but it enables survival in the long term. Linda understood that this decision was a crucial part of the alien evaluation. They were testing whether humans could accept the harsh realities of natural systems while still maintaining compassion and respect for life. After extensive discussion, Linda's family decided to include predatory species, but to design the ecosystem so that hunting would be as humane as possible. During the 4th week, they faced their greatest challenge when the alien observers introduced unexpected problems to test their ecosystem's resilience. A solar flare disrupted their energy systems, forcing them to rely entirely on biological power generation. Contamination in one asteroid required emergency quarantine procedures. Population explosions among certain species threatened to overwhelm their food production capacity. These problems are part of the test, Navigator explained as Linda's family worked frantically to address each crisis. The alien evaluators want to see how your ecosystem responds to stress and whether your management decisions prioritize short-term convenience or long-term stability. Linda found herself making decisions that would have been impossible for her to understand before the knowledge transfer. She authorized controlled burns in their forests to prevent larger fires. She approved the introduction of diseases that would limit population growth in certain species. Most difficult of all, she decided to allow natural selection to eliminate individuals that were too weak to survive in their artificial environment. I feel like we're playing God, Linda said during a particularly difficult day when they had to choose which animals would receive limited medical treatment. You are learning to think like a planetary ecosystem. The alien voices responded in her mind. Every successful species eventually faces choices about resource allocation and population management. The question is whether these choices are made with wisdom or driven by short-term emotions. Sophie had discovered that the alien language contained concepts for describing complex ethical relationships between species. They have words for types of responsibility that don't exist in human languages, she explained, like the obligation that intelligent species have to maintain conditions that allow other life forms to evolve and thrive. By the end of the 30-day testing period, Linda's family had created a functioning ecosystem that could theoretically support human life indefinitely. 3 asteroids had been transformed into interconnected biospheres containing forests, agricultural areas, and residential facilities. The system included over 200 different species of plants and animals, all carefully balanced to maintain long-term stability. More importantly, Linda realized that the test had changed her understanding of what it meant to be human. She no longer thought about survival in terms of dominating nature, but rather in terms of finding humanity's proper role within larger living systems. Alex had developed abilities to design biological technologies that worked with natural processes rather than against them. Sophie had learned to communicate with non-human life forms in ways that respected their intrinsic value. The evaluation period is complete, the alien voices announced as Linda stood in the central garden of their. The attack came without warning in the early hours of what should have been a day of celebration. Linda woke to alarms echoing through the asteroid facility and emergency lights flashing red warnings across every surface. Through her mental connection to the alien network, she sensed massive objects moving through space toward their location with hostile intent. Navigator, what's happening? Linda called out as she rushed toward the command center. Alex and Sophie were already there studying displays that showed dozens of large spacecraft approaching from the outer edges of the star system. We are detecting vessels of unknown configuration, Navigator replied with unusual tension in its normally calm voice. Their energy signatures do not match any known galactic council species. They appear to be armed with weapons capable of destroying this entire asteroid belt. Linda felt ice forming in her stomach as she realized what was happening. The alien observers had warned her that some forces in the galaxy opposed the expansion of consciousness and cooperation among species. Now those forces were moving to destroy her family's achievement before humanity could complete its evaluation for galactic citizenship. "Can we defend ourselves?" Alex asked as he interfaced with the facility's sensor systems. "Grandfather must have left us some kind of protection." Linda moved to the central control console and felt the alien technology responding to her heightened emotional state. Through the network connection, she could sense the approaching ships more clearly now. They were massive automated war machines designed for a single purpose: eliminating species that showed potential for joining the galactic community. Your grandfather prepared for this possibility. Navigator revealed as new displays activated throughout the command center. The asteroid belt contains defensive systems that have been dormant since his death, but activating them will require full integration with the alien network technology. "What does that mean?" Sophie asked. She was working frantically to establish communication, links with the approaching vessels, hoping to find some way to negotiate or delay the attack. "It means that one of us must accept permanent connection to the galactic consciousness," Linda realized as information flowed into her mind from the alien network. "The defensive systems require a human operator who can think at quantum speeds and coordinate actions across multiple star systems simultaneously." The attacking ships were now close enough for detailed scanning. Linda could see that they were not operated by living beings, but were instead artificial intelligences programmed for destruction. Each vessel was larger than Earth's moon and carried weapons that could sterilize entire planets. There were 27 of them approaching in perfect formation. The machines are part of an ancient faction within galactic civilization. The alien voices explained directly into Linda's consciousness. They believe that biological life forms are inherently unstable and dangerous. They have spent millions of years preventing new species from achieving space travel and joining the community of worlds. Linda understood now why the testing process was so rigorous and why so many species failed to pass evaluation. The galaxy was not a peaceful place where all civilizations cooperated willingly. There were forces that actively worked to prevent the spread of consciousness and wisdom among the stars. "How long do we have before they reach us?" Linda asked. "Approximately 6 hours," Navigator replied. "After that, their weapons will be in range to begin systematic destruction of this asteroid belt." Alex was studying the defensive system specifications that had appeared on his displays. "Mom, these weapons are incredible," he said with excitement that seemed inappropriate given their situation. Grandfather built energy cannons that can fire across interstellar distances and shield generators that can protect entire solar systems. But someone has to operate them manually. Linda realized that her grandfather had faced this same choice years earlier, when he first made contact with the galactic network. He had chosen to remain partially connected so that he could continue living as a normal human being. But that decision had limited his ability to access the full capabilities of alien technology. "If I accept complete integration with the network, what happens to my humanity?" Linda asked the alien voices. "You will retain your memories, emotions, and personal identity," they replied. "But your consciousness will expand to encompass awareness of millions of other beings across the galaxy. You will become part of something larger than individual human existence." Sophie was monitoring communications from the attacking fleet. "They're broadcasting a message," she said. "It's in that ancient alien language I've been studying. They're demanding that we surrender all biological life forms for immediate termination." Linda looked at her children who had grown so much during their time in the asteroid belt. Alex had developed abilities with quantum technology that surpassed anything human scientists had achieved. Sophie could communicate with alien life forms and understand biological processes that Earth biology had never discovered. They represented the future potential of human evolution and consciousness. "There has to be another way," Linda said desperately. "Can't the Galactic Council send help? Surely they have military forces that can defend us." "The Council does not intervene in evaluation processes," Navigator explained. "Species that wish to join galactic civilization must prove they can defend themselves and their achievements. This attack is part of your final test." Linda felt the weight of decision pressing down on her like a physical force. If she refused to integrate with the alien network, the attacking machines would destroy everything her family had built, and humanity would be quarantined to Earth forever. If she accepted integration, she would save her children and her species, but she would lose her identity as an individual human being. "Mom, you don't have to do this alone," Alex said suddenly. "The defensive systems are designed to be operated by multiple consciousness working together. All three of us could share the integration process." Sophie nodded eagerly. "I've been studying the network architecture," she said. "It's possible for family groups to maintain their relationships even after integration. We could stay connected to each other while gaining access to galactic consciousness." Linda realized that her children were offering to share the burden and the transformation that lay ahead. Together they could operate the defensive systems while preserving their bonds as a family. But they would all be changed in ways that could never be reversed. The attacking ships were now close enough to begin preliminary bombardment of the outer asteroids. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as automated weapons tested the range and effectiveness of their targeting systems. Linda could feel the alien network technology throughout the asteroid belt responding to the threat and preparing for activation. "We have to decide now," Navigator urged. "The defensive systems require several hours to reach full operational capacity." Linda looked at Alex and Sophie, who were both watching her with trust and determination in their eyes. They had come so far from the small apartment where they had started this journey. They had proven themselves capable of thinking beyond human limitations and working with technologies that transcended anything their species had previously achieved. "If we do this, we save humanity's chance to join the galactic community," Linda said. "But we also commit ourselves to becoming something more than human." "Maybe that's what evolution really means," Sophie replied. "Not just growing larger or stronger, but becoming capable of greater consciousness and wider connections." Alex was already interfacing with the preliminary defensive systems. "The network is designed to enhance what we already are rather than replace it," he said. "We'll still be us, but with expanded abilities and awareness." Linda made her choice. She placed her hands on the central control console and opened her mind completely to the alien network technology. Alex and Sophie did the same at their stations. Immediately, Linda felt her consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of her individual brain and nervous system. The integration process was overwhelming, but not painful. Linda could suddenly sense every living thing in the asteroid belt, from the smallest microorganisms to the complex ecosystems they had created. She was aware of energy flows throughout the star system and could perceive the approaching attack fleet with clarity that revealed every weakness in their design. Alex gained control over quantum processing systems that allowed him to calculate defensive strategies faster than any biological brain could function. Sophie achieved communication links with alien civilizations across the galaxy who were monitoring humanity's evaluation and hoping for their success. Together, the three of them activated the defensive grid that Linda's grandfather had spent decades constructing throughout the asteroid belt. Energy weapons emerged from hidden installations and began targeting the approaching attack fleet. Shield generators created protective barriers around their habitats and ecosystems. The battle that followed lasted 18 hours and stretched across half the star system. Linda and her family fought not just to protect their own achievements, but to preserve humanity's chance for a future among the stars. They used strategies that combined human creativity with alien technology and consciousness that spanned multiple dimensions of reality. When the last attack vessel was destroyed, Linda realized that they had passed their final test. But in the aftermath of the battle, Linda found herself changed in ways that went far beyond anything she had imagined possible. Her consciousness now existed simultaneously in her human body and within the vast network that connected intelligent beings across the galaxy. She could perceive events happening on worlds thousands of light years away while still feeling the familiar emotions of love and concern for her children. Alex and Sophie had been transformed as well, but they had retained more of their individual human characteristics. The integration process had enhanced their natural abilities rather than replacing them entirely. Alex could now design technologies that merged quantum physics with biological processes in ways that created living machines. Sophie had become fluent in communication methods that allowed her to speak directly with alien life forms and artificial intelligences. The Galactic Council wishes to formally welcome humanity into the community of spacefaring civilizations, the alien voices announced through speakers. Throughout the asteroid facility, Your species has demonstrated capabilities that exceed the minimum requirements for membership. You have shown wisdom, technological innovation, and most importantly, the ability to defend what you have created without destroying what others have built. Linda felt a mixture of pride and sadness as she realized what this moment meant. Humanity had passed the ultimate test and earned the right to expand beyond Earth and join the vast civilization that existed among the stars. But the knowledge and abilities required to achieve this goal had changed her family in fundamental ways. What happens now? Linda asked. Do we return to Earth and share what we've learned with the rest of humanity? That choice is yours to make, the Alien Council replied. You have been offered the position of humanity's first ambassador to the galactic community. This role would require you to remain connected to the network and serve as a liaison between your species and the thousands of other civilizations that make up our alliance. Linda looked around the asteroid facility that had become their home. The ecosystems they had created were thriving and could serve as a model for human expansion into space. The defensive systems they had activated could protect Earth from future attacks by forces that opposed galactic cooperation. Most importantly, the knowledge they had gained could help humanity avoid the mistakes that had led to environmental destruction and social conflict. If I accept this position, what would it mean for my children? Linda asked. Alex answered before the Alien Council could respond. It means we get to be part of something bigger than we ever imagined, he said with enthusiasm that reminded Linda of the teenage boy he had been just months earlier. We can help design technologies that will solve problems on Earth and make life better for everyone. Sophie had been studying information flowing through the galactic network about educational opportunities available to human children. There are learning centers on hundreds of different worlds, she said excitedly. I could study with the greatest scientists and philosophers in the galaxy while still maintaining our connection as a family. Linda realized that her children had adapted to their transformation more easily than she had. They saw the expansion of their consciousness as an adventure rather than a loss of humanity. Perhaps that flexibility was one of the qualities that had convinced the Galactic Council to accept humanity into their alliance. There are other benefits to membership in the galactic community, the alien voices continued. Your species will gain access to technologies that can reverse environmental damage, heal diseases, and provide unlimited clean energy. Poverty, hunger, and many forms of suffering can be eliminated within a single generation. Linda thought about the people on Earth who were struggling with the same problems she had faced before inheriting her grandfather's legacy. Single mothers working multiple jobs to support their children, families losing their homes because they could not afford medical treatment, communities devastated by environmental disasters that could have been prevented with better technology. How long would it take to implement these changes on Earth, she asked. The transformation process typically requires 20 to 30 years, the council replied. But your species would not be forced to accept changes they are not ready for. The technologies would be introduced gradually and only with the consent of human governments and populations. Navigators voice joined the conversation with information about the practical aspects of Linda's new role. As humanity's ambassador, you would divide your time between the Galactic Council chambers and Earth. The artificial intelligence explained. Your enhanced consciousness would allow you to maintain awareness of both environments simultaneously. Linda made her decision with the same determination that had led her to accept her grandfather's inheritance despite her family's mockery. I accept the position, she said, but I want guarantees that my children will have the freedom to choose their own paths within the galactic community. Granted, the Alien Council replied immediately. Alex and Sophie will have access to educational and career opportunities that exist nowhere else in the galaxy. They will be able to pursue their interests while contributing to the advancement of human civilization. Over the following weeks, Linda and her children prepared for their return to Earth and the beginning of humanity's new chapter in galactic history. The Horizon Walker was upgraded with technologies that would allow it to travel between star systems instantaneously. The asteroid facility was converted into a permanent research station that would serve as humanity's first outpost among the stars. The journey back to Earth took only hours instead of the weeks they had spent traveling to the Kepler 442 system. Linda used the time to organize the knowledge she would need to share with human leaders and scientists. The amount of information was overwhelming, but her enhanced consciousness allowed her to process and categorize concepts that would have taken lifetimes to understand using only human intelligence. When they arrived at Earth's orbital station, Linda was surprised to find Charles Bennett waiting for them along with representatives from every major government on the planet. News of humanity's acceptance into the galactic community had been transmitted ahead of their arrival, and the response had been immediate and dramatic. "The whole world is watching," Charles explained as they docked with the station. "Every news network is covering the story. World leaders are demanding immediate meetings. Scientists are offering to relocate their entire research programs to work with alien technology." Linda felt overwhelmed by the attention and responsibility that awaited her on Earth. She had left as a divorced mother struggling to pay rent and was returning as humanity's representative to an interstellar civilization. The transformation seemed impossible to comprehend. "What about Gary?" Sophie asked. "What about all the people who laughed at us when we left?" Linda smiled as she remembered the cousins who had mocked her $1 inheritance. "I think they're going to be very surprised by how things turned out," she said. The first meeting with world leaders took place in a specially constructed facility that could accommodate the alien communication technologies Linda now required for her ambassador duties. Presidents, prime ministers, and scientific advisors from every nation gathered to hear about humanity's new place in the galaxy. "The changes ahead will be gradual but profound," Linda explained to the assembly. "We have access to technologies that can solve every major problem facing our species. But we must prove that we can implement these solutions wisely and peacefully." The questions came rapidly from leaders who struggled to understand the implications of what Linda was telling them. How would alien technologies affect existing economies? What would happen to religions that taught humans were unique in the universe? How could they verify that the alien alliance had humanity's best interests in mind? Linda answered each question with patience and clarity, drawing on knowledge that flowed through her enhanced consciousness from civilizations that had faced similar transitions thousands of years earlier. "Every species goes through this adjustment period," she explained. "The Galactic Council provides guidance and support, but the choices about how to implement changes remain with each individual civilization." Over the following months, Linda established herself as a bridge between human and galactic civilizations. She worked with scientists to develop new energy sources that could replace fossil fuels within a decade. She collaborated with doctors to create medical technologies that could eliminate most genetic diseases. Most importantly, she helped design educational programs that would prepare human children for life in a universe filled with diverse forms of consciousness. Alex and Sophie became symbols of humanity's potential for growth and adaptation. They traveled between Earth and galactic learning centers, sharing their experiences and encouraging other young humans to embrace the opportunities that lay ahead. Their success proved that human consciousness could expand and evolve without losing the essential qualities that made the species unique. Linda often thought about her grandfather and the faith he had shown in her abilities. He had seen potential in a struggling single mother that even she had not recognized. His decision to leave her the